Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news this sad day for Manchester United fans. What are we going to be talking about? Well, look, I want to talk about the INEOS ownership. I think I'm still amazed by why this is not more mainstream. Can we break that down? Can you tell me? Because yet again this morning, more news coming out of stuff that we should already know about the bad state of Manchester United, the excuses, why you're having to pay for INEOS and the Glazers, why the INEOS props Glazers up. We'll talk about that because it's a disgrace and it's just, I don't know, it's just been swept under the carpet. And on days like this where we are thinking about the Busby Babes and the Munich tragedy, the 6th of February, and you look at the way the club's being run, there's a complete and utter hypocrisy. We're a great football club with a sad and amazing history. And we are living through this, being suppressed by an ownership that really isn't making any sense. So we'll talk about that. I also want to talk about what Yoro said about Amorim and probably explains why Rashford left. We're also going to talk about what the Napoli president said about Garnacho, because I forgot to speak about that yesterday. And I also want to talk about an interesting Amorim tactical shift that probably should become more permanent. We'll get your thoughts on that as well. But look, lots to get into. Look, the headline is that Manchester United over the last few years have lost £200 million to debt interest repayments that for some reason people just don't want to talk about. So we'll talk about that, and I want to know why it is you think that the mainstream media and certain fans in our fan base are very quiet about Man United being in the worst position they've been in 10 years. We've protested, we've had Glazers out movements, yet we're in the worst position we've ever been in and nobody's doing anything. Why is that? Why do you think that as a fan? You've got a voice. Why do you think nobody's doing anything? Why do you think everyone's really quiet? Are they taking backhanders? Are they scared? Have they had enough? Are they apathetic? Is it because we've got British owners, 28%? Why is it that we're sat on our arse doing nothing? Because I tell you what, our biggest rival, I said this last night, Liverpool, they wouldn't put up with the Glazers. They wouldn't put up with this. So why is our fan base doing this? Why are other aggregators, content creators, Link Shaw's injured? No one's talking about it. Why isn't anybody talking about it? Why is everybody putting up with it? I want to know, because I wake up every single day frustrated by it. But look, today is February the 6th, and to every single Manchester United fan, it's a day where we reflect and we think and we remember something we will never forget, which is the Munich tragedy. And I've seen a lot of tributes today, and I think this is something that no matter whether you're young or old, this will never disappear, this will never change. In 100 years' time, people will still be commemorating and remembering the Munich tragedy, the Busby Babes, and everybody that was lost that day all those years ago. I think it is such a sad day, but it's also, in a way, I think I've said this many times, it's what makes this great fan base great. Because every February the 6th, we remember, we talk, we reminisce. And that book behind me, Duncan Edwards, I mean, that's why I support Manchester United, because of my granddad's love for Duncan Edwards and the Busby Babes. That's where it all started for me. And I think what I always try to say on this day is that if you don't know the story, go and find out the story. Go and read the story, because the Busby Babes weren't a potential team. They were a team that had already won the league title. They were this young, exciting team that Sir Matt Busby built, and they were already heading to great things. That's why they were in Europe. And I think what my granddad always used to say to me is the most important message he would ever say about the Busby Babes was they weren't defined by the tragedy. They became heroes forever, and they would never be forgotten because of the Munich tragedy, but they were already heroes. They were already an amazing side. And I think the biggest lesson I could ever send, which came from my granddad, and I'm sure many other people of that era, was that we must always remember them for the Munich tragedy, but we must always remember that they were a fantastic side without that. And they were. And we lost something very, very, very important that day, and that is why this club is worth fighting for. And I don't want to make it about that, because this is something separate. But yeah, the tributes are fantastic, and we should never forget. And if you get a bit of time today, just let's go and learn the story, etc. Because there's so much to learn about that. Yeah, I mean, look, it's personal to everybody. It's always a very important day. Lee Ellis says, Mark is all talk and no action. These videos he's been doing aren't going to cut it. Lee, I love the fact that you want to be an arsehole on a day like today, and that's absolutely fine. And if you want to move the conversation on to that, that's absolutely fine as well. We can do that. But I don't see anybody else in the media. Since we put that video out 2 days ago talking about landlocked land in the middle of a regeneration that will make Man United a lot of money and the Glazers. I don't see anybody else talking about it. Sky Sports put a different map up without even they actually didn't have that land in the middle of a regeneration area. Nobody's spoken about it since, not the Manchester Evening News, not the Daily Mail. Nobody spoke about it since, because it's just like, let's just bury it. Let's just bury it. And why are journalists not talking about stuff like that? Because they're client journalists. They're on the I mean, they may as well be on the payroll. They're not interested. Also, why is it that we are in the worst position we've been in 10 years and nobody's talking about it? Is it because we've got British owners now? Is it because Sir Jim Radcliffe and Sir David Brailsford are British? Is that what it is? Oh, Man United have got British owners, so I don't really care if they're driving us into the ground. It's an app. I cannot understand it. I would open to the comments. We've got a lot to talk about this morning, so I don't want to just be stuck on this topic. But what I did want to talk about this morning was that there was a very interesting podcast out yesterday. I must shout the podcast out, actually. I will shout the podcast out, but I know who it was. It was Kieran Maguire, who is a financial expert. It was the Price of Football podcast. And what he basically said is that Manchester United are telling fans they might need to raise tickets to avoid a PSR breach. But most of their 300 million loss over the last few years has come from over 200 million pounds of it Glazer debt. 30 million pounds went on consultancy fees to help them get the money from INEOS. 30 million pounds that they took. 30 million pounds, and we were going to sell Garnacho to buy players, and you're paying higher ticket prices. 200 million pounds in the last few years on interest repayments on debt that the Glazers put on the club. I can't speak. It's an absolute disgrace, and I don't know whether other content creators' websites are thick or scared, or I can't be bothered to get involved in that, but they'd rather talk to you about Luke Shaw's injury. They're not interested. Nobody's interested in talking about this. Nobody wants to talk about it. And I don't know what it is. Did we not get the phone call from Man United or something? And even if we did, probably wouldn't get the phone call because we wouldn't listen. This is serious stuff that's going on at Manchester United. It's like propaganda. It's strange how the whole of the mainstream and a lot of our fans are just quiet. And why are you quiet? What is it that's making you quiet about Man United factually being in the worst position we've been in since Sir Alex Ferguson left? We are stranded in the bottom half of the table. Our team is not very good. We are getting beat on the regular at home by Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, Forest, Brighton. We're absolutely terrible. We haven't got the squad to play the way Amrin wants to play. We're already getting beat every week. And financially, they're putting your ticket prices up. They're sacking people. They're talking about more cuts to come. And I'm sort of like, what is it that people are? Why are people so quiet? Why are journalists writing about, oh, United are going to make a big splash in the summer transfer window? Just you get ready, get your trunks on because you're going to get wet. What? What are you basing this on? Because in 2 months' time, you'll be talking about PSR and FFP again. The cold, harsh facts are this. And I would say this to any of these so-called experts who sit there doing videos or articles about how United can spend money in the summer or why it's not INEOS's fault. The cold, harsh facts are this. Man United are financially screwed. Absolutely screwed. I would not lie about that. We are screwed. absolutely screwed. We are close on PSR. We are close on FFP. We have very little wiggle room. We're absolutely screwed. I'm not going to pretend we're not. I'm not going to pretend we can spend £300 million when we can't. We're absolutely screwed, and everyone would agree with that. The answer is, why are we screwed? And we're screwed because INEOS bailed the Glazers out. And off he goes. And anybody who comes back and says that that's not true is absolutely rubbish. You said a couple of months ago we weren't close to PSR. Sam, can you just jog on? Can you just go away? This is a grown-up conversation. What I said 2 months ago, I don't know. I'd have to see the clips. But what I'm talking here about, Sam, is it's not a game of he said. I mean, you are a prime example, actually, Sam. Thank you very much for your contribution this morning. Respect. You are a prime example of what is wrong with this fan base. Absolute. Can we get some applause for Sam? Because as much as his comment might be taken the wrong way, he's actually the GOAT of the chat this morning. You want to know why? Because Sam reflects the problem in this fan base. We're talking about something very serious. We're talking about Glazers in the INEOS sinking this club. But Sam, instead of talking about that, Sam wants to have a pop at me. And then have a pop at someone else. You know, we're having a very serious conversation, but let's blame it on Goldbridge, because Goldbridge said 2 months ago, he said something about PSR. And this is why we fail. Because you've got groups of fans in the United fan base who would rather argue with each other than actually deal with the problem. And this is why Liverpool have got a better fan base than us, because they wouldn't put up with the Glazers. And I hate saying that about Liverpool. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth, but they wouldn't do it. You wouldn't get people like Sam starting an argument against another fan. I'm not the owner, Sam. I don't run the football club. If I was, we wouldn't be in this position because the Glazers wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be in debt. But this is I appreciate Sam. I actually do, because caught in 4K is exactly what the problem is. There are people in our fan base who would rather get one-upmanship and argue with other fans than actually look at the real problem. And that, I'm sorry, you probably just explained the problem. I've probably just figured it out. We're too interested in arguing with each other than solving the problem. But back to what I said, if you want a short answer of why we're in this position, the Glazers were in trouble. 2 years ago, the Glazers had a cash flow problem. They were in trouble. They didn't want to sell, but they had to put the club up for sale because they needed money to come in. And if somebody hadn't bailed them out like INEOS did, they'd have had to sell and fuck off. And ultimately, the INEOS came in, bailed them out, and here we are. Here we are. We're exactly in the same situation as we were, if not worse. And we are in trouble. Of course we are, but we are in trouble because the situation was saved by INEOS for the Glazers. They have saved them. That's what they have done. They have basically elongated this nightmare under the Glazers where this debt is here and it is sinking us. And I'll happily have this conversation with anybody. I've listened to loads of financial experts talk about this, and every single one of them says the same thing. The Glazers have sunk Manchester United and the debt is sinking them further. And whilst that is there, all this talk about INEOS are doing their best, I can't believe it. I actually can't believe that people say it's not INEOS's fault, they're doing their best with the situation. They literally bailed the Pratts out. They literally bailed the Glazers out. They don't go to work and not talk to each other. They're mates. They're in it together. They bailed them out. They're in bed with them. That's what they did. And we have a media, and we have ex-players, and we have certain fans who are on the payroll as well. And I don't mean literally on the payroll, but they're part of the PR campaign. Oh, you know, INEOS have got to do this. They've got to do this. They've got to cut costs. They've got to cut costs. They've got to do this. You can't knock it. They've got to do this. Well, hold on a minute. Will you have a chat with me? No, I'm not doing that. I'm terrified of having a chat with you. Well, all right. I'll say it then. But it would be even more powerful if I actually sat in the same room with you saying that and sat you down, because ultimately what we have here is propaganda. Oh, all these people are anti-INEOS. They're just jealous because they wanted Qatar. No, I want to sit in a room with all you people who are pro-INEOS and ask you the question instead of you sitting there with your calculator talking shit. I want to just ask this question. Would Man United be in this position if the Glazers had sold up? No. Would they be in that position? No, they wouldn't be in that position because they wouldn't be in the debt. Okay, so are we in a shit situation because the Glazers are still here? Yes, we are. Who put them here? INEOS, yes. Okay, so what are you sticking up for them for? We'd be in a better situation if the Glazers had been forced out and INEOS allowed them a way to stay. Were there other opportunities to get the Glazers out? Yes. Not even if Qatar weren't in the race, and nobody would bail the Glazers out, they would have had to sell up. They were in a position where they needed money in. And people say, oh, they would have done it with an American investment fund. Yeah, good luck with that. That would not have worked. The media wouldn't have liked that. This works perfectly, almost too perfectly, that the people that bail the Glazers out are British and local. It's almost the perfect plan. Carry on doing what we're doing, cutting, losing jobs, fucking the club up, but front it with a British outlet. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And I just seriously wanted to say it this morning because it is news, because I'd seen Kieran Maguire on this podcast say Manchester United are talking about change of ownership and new ideas, and they've got to raise ticket prices, and there's going to be more cuts because PSR is really hurting them. And the reality is £200 million in the last few years has gone out and impacted the club on PSR because of debt interest on Glazer debt. So explain to me why the club are being allowed to talk about ticket prices and selling young players, and can't do this in the transfer window, when the reality is it's Glazer debt that's sinking the club and INEOS allowed them to stay. It's some weird puzzle of INEOS are the good guys and the Glazers are okay, and we can sack people and we can raise ticket prices for shit football when it all comes down to the debt. It's the most obvious issue that nobody wants to talk about, and I'm so confused. I'm so confused why people are putting... I mean, what is it you're waiting for? That's what I want to know is what you're waiting for. The Super League, everyone was like, this is unacceptable, the Glazers are scum, let's come together and do something. What is it you're waiting for in this current situation? Because Mission 21 is going to take about 21 years. I don't think it's 21 titles, I think it's 21 years. I don't see the future with this plan that they've got. I really don't. It's austerity. It's like the Conservatives 10 years ago. It's just cuts. I am massively confused. I am massively confused by... Well, I'm not confused. I'm massively frustrated. I'm not confused. I know what the situation is. I'm massively frustrated by our fan base and why people just aren't absolutely livid with what's going on. I understand it with some people because they're just morons. They're just morons. They'd rather talk about Luke Shaw being injured, like I say, because they just wake up in the morning with bloody candy floss in their brains. You know, they've got no political understanding of their football club and the position it's in. But this is serious. It's really serious. And it just amazes me how obviously serious it is and how obvious the situation is and how... Look, and another thing I would say as well, INEOS are out of control. What's the plan? What is the plan that they're telling us? How can owners come into the football club, partial owners, how can they come into the football club and say nothing? How is it that they will not communicate? I don't want them to communicate with fan groups. Fuck that. I mean, that's just manipulation to get people on side. Oh, we'll give you discounts and we'll give you a place on the board. I'm not interested in that. Communication with your fans is communication to everybody publicly. It's not little chats with Must. It's public communication with everybody. This is our plan. What is your plan? You've been here a year. What is your plan? At no point have you said, this is the plan. You know, we intend to buy the best players for this football club and take Manchester United back to the top. I've not heard anything like that. Is your plan to keep cutting and, you know, not spending money, raising ticket prices? How much is the stadium going to cost? Is that going to impact us in the transfer window? It's typical Glazenomics. It's tell them nothing and do the worst and ride it out. And I'm absolutely disgusted by the lack of noise around how concerning the situation is at Manchester United. And the problem with that is that a lot of intelligent people project very intelligent projections, but then a lot of propaganda people who are pro this INEOS Glazer partnership sit there or tweet out total shit to muddy the waters and contradict. And it's the same people who, when it was Qatar versus INEOS, were telling everybody INEOS is the right deal. Sir Jim is desperate to get Man United back on the top. By 2026, he'll have got the Glazers out. The money will be coming in. It was just lies. Lies. And they're lying again. The same people are lying again. They literally got caught lying and nobody batted an eyelid. They were like, yeah, INEOS's plan is definitely to get all of the club. By 2026, they'll have it in writing that the Glazers have got to go. They'll have them phased out, this, that, and the other. It never even happened. It was a complete and utter lie. Never even happened, and people swallowed that shit. And now here we are. And I'm not pointing fingers here. I'm just saying, why is it that not enough people are actually on board with this situation, which is a disgrace? And why is it that people aren't that bothered? I don't know. I just don't get it. Stephen says, we need Glazers 2.0 out. Vacation Pappy says, weren't Arnold and Woodward accountants? How the hell did they overspend on salaries so bad? Because they're not football people, for Vacation Pappy. I think this is always fundamentally the problem. The best football clubs are run by people who understand football. And we've had people who don't understand. I mean, does Sir Jim Radcliffe understand football? I don't think he does. I really don't. Every interview I've ever heard of him, he's a lifelong Man United fan, but he doesn't seem to understand what Man United's all about. I've never heard one line from him that makes me think he understands what football's all about. He might just be someone who likes football. You know, we all know people who like football but don't actually know much about it. But Woodward and Arnold, being accountants, don't understand football. Clear the debt needs to be the unifying message, says Keel. Since the summer, the Glazers and INEOS have done nothing but drain the club. United Stam seems to be the only one that's calling it out. I've seen other outlets praise INEOS. I feel like I'm going crazy, says Patrick Lynch. Look, if those other outlets have got the balls, I'll invite them on. They can come on, biggest platform in the Man United worldwide community. They can come on and tell me why I'm wrong, but they won't do it. Because they want to sit there. Maybe they're being promised interviews or access, or maybe they think they'll get that access. I don't know what it is, but I've said this before. If you are an employee of Manchester United singing the tune of INEOS and Glazers, then you're just as bad as them. There's a lot of people at Manchester United who've had enough of what's going on with INEOS and the Glazers, but you know they're from the inside out. But those who are on the inside, you know, going along with this, you're just as bad as them. You're not Manchester United people. Grateful for all you do from Cyprus, says Philomenas. We fans shouldn't cause further chaos, says Hyans. Don't know what that means. I'm 39 and supported United before I can remember, and it kills me when with what's happening. But I've resigned myself to the fact that they are going to leave my club, says Martin Saunders. I just got married the 1st and today it's my birthday. Happy birthday, Mojan. They are not experts, they are mouthpieces for INEOS and the Glazers. We people actually talk the truth, then the mouthpieces start to back them, says John. INEOS is very much on thin ice with their behaviour on the pitch, but off the pitch they have 6 months to bring back a feel-good family factor to the club. They need to do hard things now, but this cannot last forever, says LMP. I disagree with this, LMP, again, I really thank you for it, because you're not the only person that feels like that. There are people out there that think INEOS are doing the hard things now to make the good times better. But can I just repeat this, because it's not getting through to some people? What do you mean they need to do the hard things now to make things better in the future? What do you mean by that? Because I assume you mean by that they've got to make all these cuts because we're in financial trouble and then we'll be better in the future. No, you're wrong. In my opinion, you're wrong. They don't need to do this. They need to do this because they got into bed with the Glazers, and this is how the Glazers run the football club. If they hadn't helped the Glazers out, what I'm basically saying is the Glazer-INEOS relationship is always going to be dictated to by debt. So everything they do, sack people, raise ticket prices, cut money to charities, try to sell Mainu and Garnacho, all those things, they don't need to do them. They're doing them because that's the situation they chose to go down with the Glazers by getting into bed with them. So I don't sympathise with it. I don't justify it. I don't understand it. I'm not on board with it. But some people are, they've got to do this, they've got to do this. No, they don't have to do this. They inflicted a situation on us that nobody really wanted. If we'd ended up with a full ownership and a clearance of the debt, we wouldn't be raising ticket prices, we wouldn't be sacking people, we wouldn't be on the limits of PSR. and this is where I think some people don't open their mind. They sort of like go, well, what are INEOS supposed to do? Like, you know, they're in this situation. They didn't get forced into that situation. They chose to give the Glazers £1.3 billion to get 25% and work on a Man United that's riddled with debt. They chose to do that. They inflicted that on us. I don't understand why people sit here and go, well, what are they supposed to do? Keep the fucking nose out and don't buy the fucking club. That's what you should have done. If you can't afford all of it, fucking don't buy any of it. That's what you should have done. And that's what I don't think is getting through to some people. This INEOS situation where people are going, oh, they're making cuts. They're doing what they've got to do. No, they're doing what the situation dictates happens because they did a deal with the Glazers. If they hadn't done that deal, we wouldn't be in this situation because nobody else would have done it. And the Glazers wouldn't have been able to do it with an American investment fund because an American investment fund would have led to mass protests. It's the frontage of a British ownership that has allowed this to happen. It's the perfect marriage. And look, the situation is the situation, and I really hope it gets better. But for people to justify the situation and say they're only doing what they can do, they put themselves into this situation by putting us into bed with the Glazers. They shouldn't be getting sympathy for making cuts. It's like people think INEOS are like some sort of Lone Ranger who've come in to save the day because the house is under siege. They put it under siege. They put it under siege by doing this. Considering we finish around 13th this season, would it be realistic to expect top 4 next season instead of the title? I don't know why you think we're getting top 5. Yeah. Hi Mark, could you call out Patrick Darren? He thinks INEOS are good for the club. Also, will you do YouTube forever? Says Shane Stones. Mark, I super chatted yesterday about contacts to start protests. I'm 100% up for it. I don't know where to start. I'm sick of it now, says Garfield. No, we're not starting protests, mate. And I get a lot of people saying, I want to start protests. You can't start a protest on your own. You can't do it. The United Stand can't do it. That can't work, Garfield, because that gets people's back up. I've been in the game long enough. I've played the game. You've played the game. We don't start protests off our own back because there are people out there that will go, oh, look at the Forest fan and his, fake worldwide teenagers who aren't even real fans starting some protest. It will get the backup of the hardcore groups. So we can't start it. It's sad, but we can't because you lose then. You need everybody together. That's what you need. And it has to start from those hardcore groups. They have to be the people who start it. And then everybody else gets behind it. But they have to open the door to everybody and talk to everybody. And at the moment, it just seems very quiet on that front. And look, Garfield's trying to help. I know he is. But I remember this happening a few years ago where a certain Twitter account started going, let's meet up outside Old Trafford. We've got to do something. And it ended up just being a big argument between different groups. And that won't work. Why don't INEOS clear the debt first and support Amrim in the transfer market instead of building a new stadium, says KC? Oh, because the stadium's going to make certain people a lot of money, mate. I mean, you've probably just dropped the best question of the day. Why are Man United obsessed with a new stadium when they could actually be obsessed about building a team first? Because the stadium and the regeneration of the area, as we talked about on that video the other day, is going to make the Glazers and INEOS a hell of a lot of money. So, look, they're business people. You have a choice. You have one choice. You can either rebuild the stadium and the area and make a lot of money over the next 15 years, or you can rebuild the club now over the next 15 months and get us back competing for trophies. You know what we're all going to go with that. They're all going to go with that. I think most people expect it just to get better, says Cruel. Well, it can't. Well, it will get better. 100% it's going to get better. There's no doubt it's going to get better. But you're starting from a very low bar. If you're swimming in shit and you get out and you have a cold shower, it's getting better. You're still going to have the residue of shit because you haven't got any hot water and shampoo, but you're going to be cleaner. You'll be cold and you'll have a faint smell of shit, but it's better than swimming in it. And we will get better. Of course, we can't get much worse. It will get better, but is it where we want to be? All I'm saying is, and hello, Sir David Brailsford, Sir Jim Radcliffe, Omar Barada, whoever, get yourself on the United Stand if you think it's wrong. The door has always been open, but they won't do it. They're not going to do it because they'll be thinking about how do we spin this? How do we how do we discredit this? They'll be phoning up people going, can you do something opposite to this? And, you know, call him a Forest fan or something. But this is what frustrates me. I know that this community on its own can't be the only community doing anything about it. But that's the point of this video today. We're not missing anything. Financial experts are talking about the same thing we're talking about. We are talking about PSR because, like it's some excuse for INEOS to sack people and keep cutting and selling young players. We're in the PSR situation because the Glazers have us in debt and we're paying massive amounts each year on interest, which is PSR applicable. It's bloody Janet and John stuff. It's ABC. It's so bloody obvious that this club is being sunk by bad ownership and now they're trying to make cuts. But my point is, why is it you feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall every single day because nobody else wants to talk about it? None of the mainstream want to talk about it. No other real United fans with a voice want to talk about it. They're just staying quiet, and that's the sinister thing. Why is everybody so quiet? Is it just because they're British? I don't know, but there's something sinister going on because it's quiet. As I said, we did that video about that land that nobody really knew about. You'd expect there would have been some follow-up articles in the mainstream outlets who haven't spoken about it. Radio silence. Nobody is talking about it. It's weird how this football club at the moment seems to be locked into some sort of sinister PR cycle where it's saying nothing. And it's weird. It's really weird. The only thing we're getting around Man United at the moment is Amorim should change his formation. I'm not sure whether Amorim's that good. I mean, I don't want him to get sacked. I mean, that's all I ever hear. Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, Manchester Evening News. I don't know about Amorim. Yeah. They're starting that. And I'm like, oh my Christ. Look, I've spent 20 minutes on this. I just wanted to get it out there. I don't understand why something so glaringly obvious. Nothing's changed under this ownership, has it? Nothing's changed under INEOS. Nothing has changed. What a surprise. It's actually getting worse. Is it possible for Sheikh Jassim to buy the remaining share? I mean, I'm not, mate. We have to make things better with what we've got, and to do that, we need a bit of pressure. That's why at the Fulham game, when people were singing about Sir Jim Radcliffe, and people were having a go at him about ticket prices, you'd hope that sort of thing might give him a kick up the arse to start looking at some stuff. To be honest, Mark, it's going to take at least 10 years, says Football Bloods. Protests will only hurt the club, not the Glazers. We will be docked points. The only option is relegation. This will push us into administration. Qatar can then buy us. So I don't think the INEOS are going anywhere, Sahaj, to be honest with you. Mark, add the land to Radcliffe also owning the fracking rights all around Stretford, Urmston, Old Trafford and Carrington. He bought off Malcolm Glazer, says Bottle Fed Red. I don't know anything about that, but I don't know if that's true. Would be interesting to know who holds Man United's debt, who is in receipt of the interest payments, says Paul Daly. Wouldn't be that hard to find out. Gone are the days when United fans didn't tolerate shit. We're a soft fan base that care more about being proven right over the betterment of the club, says Nat. And hi Mark, club is gone because one, INEOS have basically destroyed everything from within the club, and transfer was a disgrace and no confidence for me, says Gaming Gaz. Why is Sir Radcliffe, who is richer than the Glazers and at his age, is set on some 5-year plan that probably won't work to win consistently and get out of debt anytime soon? Sell to win equals contradiction, says Edward 5. And today is a day where we should be mourning and be remembering the history of United. Instead, we are listening to rubbish from our owners, says John Jordan. And if the return on investment on the stadium development is higher than the interest rate of borrowing, you better believe there's more debt coming our way, says Ardo. We need the Red Army, says CSI. And regardless of football experience, you'd expect successful businessmen to have known about the finances and have a genuine plan to rebuild the squad and succeed. Complete disconnect with the fans, says James Cave. Mate, as I said last night, it absolutely is true that there are a lot of people working at Man United who are absolutely fed up. They don't like it. I don't know whether that's in the playing squad. That would be unfair to speculate. You can only go on the information that you know to be true. There's a lot of people working at Man United who are absolutely fed up of the way the club... They were fed up under the Glazers anyway, and it's not got any better. So to imagine that there is this siege mentality with all the employees at Old Trafford would be fantasy. There are people who are very unhappy. And obviously, they've got the sack hanging over them as well. Like, they sacked a load of people. So it's not a happy workplace. It really isn't. It's been described as a dictatorship within that football club. the way that they're running the football club, it's a dictatorship. You've got like Sir Jim's crew walking around like they own the place, which they don't. You've got Joel Glazer as well. It's not a happy workplace, and they've seen how Dan Ashworth was dealt with. So yeah, it's not. And I think somebody said it a couple of days ago. If you work somewhere, no matter how good you are at your job, if you work somewhere where it's not very good, then you're not focused. I think Gary Neville has a huge influence on the fan base media. He's working on this project with Sir Jim, and until the mainstream starts speaking like we are, it will never be fixed or sorted, says Josh. I mean, look, I'm never going to be quiet when Gary Neville says something football related that's stupid, and obviously that does happen. I don't know. There are a lot of people who are uncomfortable with Gary Neville's obvious public connections with this regeneration, with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, INEOS, the government. And look, I don't know. I expect there'll probably be an expose on that very soon, because the truth will come out. But he's sort of become an irrelevance if he can't speak out about the best interests of Manchester United as a football team. And if he can't speak out against them because of his relationship with building this thing with INEOS, then he's not really a pundit, is he? You've got conflicted interest. I don't know about that. I'm talking about, I think it's a bit of a distraction. We're talking about INEOS and the Glazers and the way they're running Manchester United. Gary Neville is an irrelevance in many sense, because we all laugh at some of his opinions anyway. So the fact that he's not going to call out Manchester United and INEOS and the Glazers anymore is, if money is his god, then money is his god, isn't it? That's up to him. He hasn't said much recently, I would admit, but I don't really understand what his role is with INEOS and everything like that. And if he would rather chase money for his legacy, that's up to him. Lots of people do it. John Duran's just gone to Saudi Arabia. You can't knock it. But if you think he's the spokesman for Manchester United in the mainstream, he certainly isn't, is he? But it's a shame. It's a shame when you think of what the player used to be like. But look, he is not the issue, far from it. There's a lot of people in the mainstream that are very quiet. Anyway, let's move on. I feel like we've spoken about that a lot, but I could talk about it for hours. I'm just so frustrated with it. It's really annoying. The Glazers and INEOS run the club and social media like a Second World War communist country. They peddle their propaganda and bury the truth, says Ian Carlton. It doesn't help that there are people in the fan base who have very influential voices who don't say anything about this. And as I say, I'm moving on now, but the reality is two things can't be argued. We'd be in a better position without Glazers and INEOS, 100%, because we wouldn't have the debt. And second of all, anybody who's sympathetic of INEOS making cuts, why are you sympathetic? They didn't have to bail the Glazers out. They're basically, imagine if you've got a neighbour who's really naughty. This is the best analogy of what INEOS did, right? You live in a community, right? And you live next to somebody who is really noisy, really abusive. They're bringing down the value in the area. Their fence is broken. They never cut the grass. They let their dogs run around all over the place. They've got music blaring out, antisocial, horrible neighbours from hell, yeah? Anyway, a for sale sign goes up and everybody in the area goes, oh my God, we're finally going to get rid of them. Finally going to get rid of them. And then Sir Jim Ratcliffe rolls up in his car and gives them the money to stay. That's it. That's basically what he did. They put this house up for sale and everyone thought they were going to go. And then Sir Jim rolled up and allowed them to stay. And now when all the noise is back and everyone's moaning about the neighbours, some people are going, well, it's not Sir Jim's fault. He's doing his best. And that is literally the analogy. That they were there, they were for sale, they were the neighbours from hell, they were going to go, and Sir Jim rolled up and gave them the money to stay. And some people are sympathetic to Jim going, oh, it's not his fault, it's not his fault. He literally saved them with that money. That's it. Right, let's move on. I want to talk about, actually, just a bit of football, actually. I want to bring this in because I thought this was quite interesting. God, a lot of this show's gone already. Okay, so I wanted to just bring this in. So really interesting. I'm going to shout out at AmrimEra_ on social media for this. Ruben Amorim's system with a winger at wing back versus just defenders at wing back. So I don't like using Mazraoui and Delo as the wing backs. I know he does it because he's trying to not lose games, but I think in our last 2 games, we've really witnessed the big problem with Amorim's 3-4-3 becoming a back 5. Against Fulham, we won, but it was quite a fortuitous win. It could have gone either way. We could have lost that. And then against Crystal Palace, we did it and we lost at home. So even trying to keep that defence secure, we don't create anything. So it's almost like you might win a game 1-0, but you might lose a game 2-0. It's going to be tight. And I'm sort of almost thinking, but if you put the white winger there, all right, it might open the game up a bit, but you might win the game 3-2. So I think I'd rather see goals than what we're seeing at the moment. Anyway, this is an interesting stat. Ruben Amorim's system with a winger in the fullback positions or with 2 fullbacks. Winger at wing-back, 4 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss, 67% win rate. Defenders at wing-back, 4 wins, 2 draws, 6 losses, 33% win rate. So when we put Ahmad on the right and we don't use Mazraoui or Delo, we have a 67% win rate. When we put Mazraoui and Delo on the wide, we have a 33% win rate. So it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And it's not what he was doing at Sporting. So I'm not blaming Amorim, by the way. I'm not blaming Amorim. I think the reason he does it is because he's so worried about us getting exposed like Ten Hag did last year. I mean, he basically is using Ten Hag's team. And this time last year, we were getting run through the midfield. You could park a bus in it. So it's the same players. People will be saying, well, he should just play Ahmad then. But that's too simplistic. He's doing it because he's worried about how exposed we will be if he puts another attacker out wide. It will create space for the opposition. And so this goes back to the same thing again. You're asking a manager with a very good system to use players that can't do it. And that is the problem that we've got. And that is why I said last night, we need to spend as much money as possible on as much quality as we can, as quick as we can. But it's going to be very difficult when you have an ownership that's going, we need to cut costs. What's Yoro's Rashi call out about? I want to talk about that actually. I will read the quote because I think it's interesting. So Lenny Yoro's just done an interview with Rio Ferdinand. I'm sure some of you have seen the quotes, and basically gave an insight into what it's like to be training with Ruben Amorim. And I think it gives a very big indicator, if you didn't know already, why Marcus Rashford probably failed at Manchester United. Now, I go back to Andy Mitten's piece a few weeks ago where he said a number of previous managers had issues with Marcus Rashford. A number of you have seen Marcus Rashford jogging around at Old Trafford, not putting the effort in. That's not the way he runs. That's just, I mean, there's that famous clip, isn't there, where he's just sort of jogging around. I don't know why. But I think we can all take it for granted that in training and on the pitch, Marcus Rashford hasn't put it in a Man United shirt at times over the last 18 months. He just hasn't done it. It's not speculative. It's not guesswork. We've seen it. And obviously, Amorim has spoken about it in training as well. So this is what Yoro had to say about what it's like to be with Amorim. He says, I have a good relationship with Amorim. I just try to do what he asks me to do. He's big on communications with the players because he played at a top level himself. He's been at a lot of clubs, so he knows your feelings when you're not playing or when you have had a bad game. He knows how to speak with you, and that's really important for me. In training, it's really, I would say, hard, but it's important. We have a lot of training, and for him, training is really important because you play the game like you train. The most important thing is to be really good in training. If you're not working, if you're lazy in training, he won't like you, he'll kill you. It's normal because, yeah, you play like you train. He's really strict on this because to win games and trophies, you need to be disciplined outside the pitch. You need to be punctual as well. So I think that in those few sentences from Lenny Yoro, I think it's absolutely spot on. And I think it just sheds that light, if we needed it to be shed, onto why Marcus Rashford has failed at Manchester United. Because for whatever reason, and only he knows it, but when Lenny Yoro, who is, 18, 19, is saying you've got to train like you play, you've got to be punctual, you've got to listen, and then you're in Amrim's circle, but if you don't, he won't, you're gone, he'll kill you. And look, Marcus Rashford may well be a victim of his own success. He's been at Man United for a long time, he's the star of the dressing room, maybe he doesn't train that well. But I think, look, Amrim told us the problem. Amrim told us that he wasn't training well. But it's interesting to hear from a current player what it's like to be part of that process. And look, Lenny Yoro sounds like he's enjoying it. You've got to work hard and you'll earn his respect, but you've got to train like you want to play. And if you don't, he'll kill you and you'll be in trouble. So these are positive things, but remember, the negative is these are not his players. So I like the fact that we've got a manager that's sort of going, you've got to train hard, you've got to be on time. All these things are massive and obviously weren't going on before. Even under Ten Hag, it clearly wasn't going on before. It didn't really matter. But we have got the right... I'm absolutely convinced that amongst all the negativity, and there's a lot to be worried about, I'm absolutely convinced that the only thing that's positive for me is the manager and a few players. But I absolutely believe we've got the right manager. I really, really do. But he has to be given the right players. And then we go back from... The one positive for me is Amrim. The way he talks, the way he wants to do things. I see a lot of what you say and what I want as well. I think we have the manager that communicates with the fans, that demands high standards, that is removing player FC. I mean, you couldn't have a better manager. And he has a really good vision. And the way he plays football when it happens is really good. We have the perfect manager. But what we don't have is the squad to do what he needs to be done. And then you wander back up towards what we were talking about at the start, where he needs players now to stop him getting beat. Desperately needs players. So you look upstairs and they're going, yeah, it's difficult, you know, because of PSR. It's difficult, yeah, really difficult. And PSR is because of the Glazer debt. Watch Yoro's done that run from Hyans. United have just released a statement on Martinez injury, confirming it's a cruciate ligament. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to really bring the mood down, but I'd be surprised if we saw him before Christmas. And as I said a couple of days ago, I think that when you look at that injury for Martinez, the amount of injuries he's had in the last 2 years, it could well be that he's sort of in that world now where he's going to be injury prone because he's going to be 28 when he comes back. It's a lot of injuries to have. So, yeah, it could well be that we've got to start looking at another position long term now as well. I mean, I wouldn't put him in the Mason Mount and Luke Shaw category yet, but he has been very unlucky with injuries in recent years. And it's a shame because I think when you're injury prone, but you're physical. If you've got injuries and you're Saka, you're not really physical. You're a skill player. But when you're Martinez and your whole game is about physicality and putting your body on the line and it's broken, it's a concern. But he'll be out for a while. Do you think Obi Martin will be in the squad tomorrow? I'll be very excited if he is, but I also would say that, look, you're talking to the perfect person about the youth because I'll always protect it. Chong got slaughtered and I was like, leave him alone. Garnacho got slaughtered, leave him alone. Yoro's had it a little bit, leave him alone. I'll protect any young player when they come into the team and we must be patient with them. But what I will say is about any young player that comes in is if they come in and they hit the ground running like Rashford did, yabba dabba do. But if they don't, it doesn't mean that they won't in the future. Like, you can get slow growers, you can get big growers. If you just tuned in then, you probably think you're watching a different podcast. But I think we just got to be patient. I wouldn't be expecting Obi Martin to come in and be the next R9 or anything like that. They're ridiculously young players. And if they come in and they're being used, it's great for them, it's great for us, but we just need to be patient with them. Botman was out for almost a year, says Darren. Yeah, Botman's a lot younger than Martinez, mate. And Martinez is picking up a lot of injuries now. Look, there's no reason to believe that Martinez won't come back and be an important player for us, but for the next year, he's not around, and we need players now, don't we? So I think that we can't wait. You can't wait. We've got to do something in the... And this is the thing as well. People are talking about... I find it hilarious that people are talking about strikers in the summer. Let's get Gyökeres. Let's get Osimhen. And I'm like, let's get some service. Like, the striker thing is so funny because let's get Obi Martin up front. Like, I've been watching Man United for weeks, months, years. We don't create chances for our strikers. So let's go and spend a load of money on a striker. Like, no, let's get more width. We're going to need another left-footed centre-back. We definitely need another midfielder. I look at that Manchester United side. I think we need 6 players in the summer just to start off with. I need a couple of wide players on either side that can also do the full-back role. I probably need at least 2 centre-backs, and I need 2 midfielders, and I would like another number 10 and a striker. I've just gone beyond, and maybe a goalkeeper. So we're a long way off. When people start talking about we'll be in the top 4 next year, there's a lot of holes to fill to be in the top 4. I think we'll climb the league with some signings, but there's a lot of holes to fill. And if you're going to fund it by selling a Mainu or Garnacho, that creates another hole in itself. I mean, if you sell Garnacho or Mainu, you've got to replace Garnacho or Mainu, which probably costs as much as you've sold them for. So, yeah, there may be trouble ahead. There may be trouble ahead. Why is it so easy to brainwash United supporters? Is there something in the water? We'll never win the Premier League until they're a new owner. I don't know. I don't know what's going on, the Stig. I really don't. I really don't understand it. The Glazers and Jimmy Os run the club, and so should have done that one. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're caught up. Fantastic show this morning. Thank you everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. Look, bottom line, it's February the 6th. The most important thing is to remember those who died so tragically in Munich in 1958 on this day. It's a sad day and it's a time for reflection. However, it's also the present, and the past can shine a light on the issues in the present. And I look at United and I repeat what I said last night. I think there's a 50-50 chance that we're heading into oblivion. And look, it's there to be challenged, but tell me I'm wrong. The analogy that we have noisy, horrible neighbours that nobody likes, that put their house up for sale and everyone thought they were going, and then Sir Jim Radcliffe rolls up and gives them some money to stay. So why are people sympathetic to what INEOS are doing? They're just running the Glazer machine for them now as the frontage. I don't know why people are quiet about it. I really don't. I think they're terrible. They've had a terrible start, and I don't see any message of anything getting better. And what always amazes me about them is that they have zero interest in being public about being positive, which makes me wonder. There's a famous sort of theory in marketing: is if you don't have anything positive to say, don't say anything. INEOS never have anything positive to say, so we always have silence. So that makes me worry even more. They never have anything positive to say. Does that mean because they know everything they're going to do is going to be negative? They never put anything positive out. Never. Thanks everyone for watching. Manchester Evening News did a piece on it. Check it out, Mark. So Radcliffe has history with them. Manchester Evening News did a piece on it. Check it out, Mark. So Radcliffe. I don't know what that means, bottle fed red. Oh, you said something else. About the fracking. Yeah. Okay. I'll go and have a look at that. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. We're back. Amrim's got a press conference at 1:30, so it'll be very interesting. Very much tune into that. Very interested to see what Amrim's got to say. Be a lot of questions asked. I mean, I'm sure he's going to get... Let's play a guessing game. I'm going to say he'll get 2 questions on Marcus Rashford. I was going to say 3, but I'm going to go with 2. Definitely going to get 2. On Rashford. Speak to you in a bit. Take care. Stay safe. And just keep educating yourself. Like, if you're happy with the situation, you're happy with the situation. But I don't really get it at the moment.